All right. All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me again on Therapy Thursdays with Rachel. I am excited. We have Dr. Jewel Williams back, and this is part two, and we're going to dig even deeper than we did. Thank you for everyone who came and celebrated last week on our little birthday
Yeah.
retail therapy. That was so much fun, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that as well. But today we're going to just dig a little deeper and, have some more serious topics. And so, as you come in, just say hello, let us know that you're here, share, and yeah, we're going to get started. So thank you, Dr. Jewel, for coming on back.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to our time of conversation and just, seeing where we go,
Yeah. Yep. All right. So I'm going to pull up my questions because we got a lot of good stuff to dig into. So today we are talking about under pressure, and pressure looks like a lot of different things. And so we're kind of just going to talk about that a little bit. So I guess first, one of the questions I want to ask is, what's the difference between pressure and stress?
That's a good question. If you really think about it, so pressure, really just the definition of it is talking about how it's this urgency that something needs to get done. And normally you're under pressure because you're in a limited time. So you've got a pressure on when you're going to get your kids back into school. You're pressured. You've got a deadline to get something done for work. So those are those pressures that happen, and sometimes they're urgent, but they're necessary. And so that's one thing. But now stress is when you allow that pressure to take you to this state where you have a mental and an emotional strain. And so now it comes to where it's this tension, and you can feel that begin to work itself in your body in different ways. You can't sleep, you're getting headaches. And so it's the difference between, really the difference between handling it and then letting it overtake you.
That's good. Yeah. Now, you said earlier that, sometimes it's necessary. So when would pressure be necessary?
Well, I think that one of the things that's really interesting about this is, there are times where, if it's left up to us, we kind of will just drag along on some things sometimes. And sometimes there have to be these things, these deadlines, these points that we have to get to something. And for some of us, if we're procrastinators, we'll find ourselves more pressured than not. But it's this thing where it's something necessary. That it's a time for change. One of the things I actually like the scripture that talks about in 2 Corinthians 4:8, it says, we are pressed on every side by trouble, but we're not crushed. We're perplexed, but not driven to despair. And so for me, that lets me know that there's going to be a pressing on us. There's going to be times when we're pressed because of troubles, unexpected things come up. That's a normal thing. That's going to happen. But it really is, how are you going into it mentally? And are you preparing yourself so that it doesn't become overwhelming?
Yeah, that's good. And there's a thing, and it's psychology and social work, but it's called internal family systems. And it talks about the different parts of us, right? And so each part is necessary, but sometimes it manifests as looking like, oh, we look at it as bad. So for instance, let's say if a person is very critical of themselves, it wasn't created to be critical. It might have just been, hey, I want you to achieve. So I'm going to push you to go harder, but then somewhere along the line it gets skewed, and then it becomes, I'm so critical of myself and I'm so focused on the failures and all of that, that I'm not looking at how this was supposed to serve me. And so sometimes it's being able to reflect and say, okay, this was meant for a different purpose, and, being able to use it then for that pressure to produce something good out of us, but not to, like you said, not to squash us.
Yeah. And if you think about it, I mean, I love the example that have been used quite often about the lump of coal. It has to deal with this pressure. It's a necessary pressure that's on this coal, and it has two choices. It can deal with the necessary pressure, and then something great comes from it, a diamond, or it can succumb to the pressure, which is the stress, and then it's kind of crushed to just powder. It's just coal dust. And so really it's a determining factor. We have to kind of make up our mind how we're going to go into our situations. And I think one thing that you said that is really key is how do we view ourselves dealing with those issues?
Yeah.
You know, I've talked to you about it before, this whole thing of having a spirit of excellence versus perfectionism, because really that's when we find ourselves getting more stressed, because we have it in our minds that we have to do this perfectly all the time. And so now, not only are we dealing with the pressure of the thing, but now we're dealing with this unnecessary pressure that we put on ourselves. And so we find ourselves sometimes succumbing to that stress. And then it's, you know, becoming overwhelmed.
Absolutely. And I think, and it's environment too, right? Because it's all about where, you know, where you are, how you are preparing your environment, but then who's in your environment as well. Because the right people are going to tell you, hey, you're trying to be a perfectionist, you're not working towards excellence, you know, or you're going to have people around you who are like, no, push yourself, work hard, keep going, you know, work to bone. And it's like, you need the right environment around you. So, you know, I think that's really, really important. What are some healthy ways to deal with pressure?
And, you know, I think one of the things is, first of all, you have to really tell yourself that it's okay. I can't do everything by myself. It's okay to ask for help. I love the scripture in Exodus 18:18. This is when Moses' father-in-law told him, said, you're going to wear yourself out. And the people too. The job is too heavy a burden for you to handle all by yourself. And so really a lot of times we have it in our mind that asking for help is a weakness, or especially if you're in that place where you have to do everything perfect, then we get to these places where we feel like, well, I can't ask because that's some shortcoming with me. I'm the first one to raise my hand. I need help. And it's really okay to ask for help, because then you may find that you have some other wisdom that is coming and adding to what you're doing. So what you may be doing is necessary to, you know, it needs to be done, but now you're not trying to tackle it by yourself.
Yeah. Why do you think it's so easy for us to fall into that, I've got to do it by myself, or I can't ask for help? Why is that kind of our default setting?
And I think a lot of times we really have to then go back and look at our history. I am really big on looking at where we came from, because our roots, how we've dealt with people relationally, will dictate and tell us a lot about why we respond different ways. More than likely, somewhere along the line, somebody disappointed us. Somewhere along the line, we asked for help, or we expected help and we didn't get the help the way we thought. Or we asked for help, and instead of them being helpful, they became too critical. And so then they just added to that feeling of being inadequate. So you kind of have to go back and really stop and listen to and reevaluate what voices spoke into you that may be hindering your ability to ask for help now.
That's good. So what are some ways, so, you know, kind of that reflection piece. So it sounds like that could be done in a few different ways. So would it be like talking with somebody? Would it be like journaling? What are some ways that people could really dig into that and kind of, you know, do that reflection about where did this voice start?
Yeah. And I think actually all of what you said, sometimes you are not going to get to it yourself. To be honest, this is sometimes where you may need to go and speak to a therapist, go speak to a counselor, a mentor, somebody that is willing to hear you, that you feel is a safe place, that you can tell them what you feel, but you also got to be willing to give yourself or give the person permission to tell you what they hear. Because sometimes if you're not willing to hear it, then it don't matter who you go to, because it's not going to hear it. But so I think that initial step is you've got to give yourself the willingness to be vulnerable. And then you have to find that safe place, whether it's a good friend, whether it's a therapist, a counselor, a pastor. Find somebody that you could say, hey, why, you know, I need some help trying to figure out why I won't ask for help, or why do I feel like I got to do everything by myself?
Yeah. And then even some of that exploration might bring things up. I know a lot of times I'll work with people and then they start and they're like, oh my gosh, I've been failing at this my whole life, you know, or I see I'm stuck in these bad patterns. So what are some good ways to combat those feelings of failure and push people past their past, you know, and being bound in their past?
Well, you know, one of the things that I say often too is we have to learn how to give ourselves this grace.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is, I'm not saying we okay wrong behavior or things like that, but we have to be willing to say, okay, I didn't get this right, but let me evaluate, was my motives right? Was my attempt right? So let me celebrate that at least I am doing some things in the right way. I just need to tweak some things. I need to change some things. But this holding on to this idea that I'm a failure because I'm just never going to get things right, everything is wrong, you're going to stay in that place. So it's this place of beginning to not always look at what you messed up. What did you do right?
Yeah.
What did you do right? So you got 9 things you didn't do right, but you did one right. Okay, let's celebrate the one. So at least you don't have to work on that one because you did that right. Let's look at the other 9 now. So it's celebrate what you did do right first, and then work towards, looking at and fixing those next things in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's an internal work, but then you also have to have some external parts too as well. And that's where, again, your circle comes in, because you need people around you who are going to celebrate you, who are going to not let you focus on that one thing. You're going to say, hey, well, what about those other 9 that you did really, really great? And not, they're going to push you towards those healthy thinking patterns and not the negative thinking patterns, because that's really sometimes what it boils down to, is that there's not healthy patterns of thinking. And somewhere along the line, you've just decided, I had this one bad thought, and then I just got stuck there. Yeah.
And then sometimes too, you've got to make sure you've got the right kind of circle. And that's what you said. And what I mean by the right kind of circle is, I'm going to be your friend, and you give me permission to be able to tell you, girl, you're whining. Come on, let's get out of the whine. Or I will let you take a moment to say, this is, what's going on. Okay, because every now and then you just need to vent. So I'll let you vent. But the next day, you're not going to keep telling me the same vent over and over again. At some point, as your friend, I need to be able to tell you, okay, I get that you're stuck in this place, but what has God done for you? Or what things are going right in your life? How can we look at some positive things? And let's start to tally those off.
Yeah.
Because then that starts to change your mindset. And so if you're not willing to have people that are going to tell you the truth, then you're going to find yourself stuck in that place.
Yeah. How do you determine the right circle for the current season that you're in? Because I know a lot of people get stuck into this, well, we've been friends all of our lives, or we've been best friends since 4th grade, and so I got to take them with me, and I tell people all the time, length doesn't always equal strength. So how do you, evaluate rather, if this is a good person for me right now?
Yeah. And that's a good question, because one, you have to look at, and this is not by any means saying that your friends have to be perfect, but you want to look at your friends, just like I do what I call an inventory. I do a personal inventory every year. So if my inventory time is October, I will actually sit down and say, what about me has changed since last year? Are the same things bothering me that bothered me last year? So I actually will kind of do that personal evaluation of myself. We need to be okay with doing those kind of evaluations about our friendships. Have our friendship go? What do our conversations sound like? Do we still whine and complain about the same stuff we whined and complained about last year? Have either one of us challenged the other one to grow? Because not only will they not be a good friend for you, guess what? You might not be a good friend for them either. And so we got to be willing to really sit down and look at and evaluate, are we really doing each other any good? And if the answer is no, it's at that point, I would really go into a place of prayer. Well, then what do I do with this friendship? Where do I now categorize it? It may not be that the friendship is going to go away. It just might be a season where I need to step back a little bit. I need to get silent and hear and figure out what's my next. And sometimes there may be a separation, but it's this thing of at least be willing to take the first step and decide, is this a healthy relationship?
Yeah. And not being afraid, because I think sometimes people get really comfortable and then they're afraid to lose these relationships, but just knowing, and I've just seen, God is really faithful with restoring or replacing whatever we feel like we might have lost. Really, it's not a loss. We might just say, okay, I'm like you said, rearranging things, and maybe there's somebody else now that fills this spot. Doesn't mean I'm just kicking you to the curb, but I am able to say, okay, you just don't fit in this position anymore, and so I just need to, move you a little bit, shift you around.
Right. And sometimes people go from that being that close inner circle friend to their more of the outer circle. So that's somebody you might say, okay, if I want to catch a movie, I can go catch a movie with them. But now if I've got some serious things that are pressing on me and I need somebody that can help me go through that pressure, then I need somebody different. Like I just finished the series on the birth plan. And one of the things was who's going with you. When you're getting ready to birth something, birthing is messy. And so you need people that can handle the messiness of birth. It's the same thing as you change, as you develop. Sometimes it's a little messy. And so you need people that can handle that and not take it personal, because one day you just might snap, and you're not snapping on them. You're snapping. Why? Because the pressure of what's going on, that's a necessary pressure because you need to change, may have you responding in the wrong way. So you need people that can say, okay, girl, come on, calm down. That is not what you think. Let's reevaluate. Let's rethink. And then you go, thank you. Because then next time when you have a moment, I'll be there for you. So we have to really be willing to kind of look at those things.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I had, some people who had some special questions when it came to like gender and gender roles and things like that. And so first we'll kind of tackle women. So for those who are women and those who are also mothers, how do you deal with balancing all of the responsibilities and almost even that like pressure to constantly produce?
And, and I get it, when I first had, my kids, I love the mothers, and they kind of would come and say, you got to do it this way, you got to do it that way, but nobody's stuff ever was the same. So one person saying, you got to clean while they sleep. Another person saying you got to do this while they sleep. Another saying you're doing this. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm too exhausted to do anything while they sleep. I need to sleep myself. So we just, as women in general, we've been put that stress on us, and we turn around and put it on the next generation. So I just come and first say, prioritize what is really important. So what if your dishes sit in the sink overnight? Nobody's gonna die because the dishes sat in the sink overnight. But because guess what? You only had enough energy. Either you wash the dishes and put them all up and make sure that the kitchen is sparkling for a commercial ad, or you take that 10, 15, 20 minutes and go and tuck in your child and, spend that time with them and create an evening moment. You pick what is important and then balance it out. So it's also this thing that, I love some of the older mothers. I remember my husband's grandmother asked me one time, why you not fixing your husband's plate? Why you not ironing his shirts? I was like, because he wear them. And I'll fix his plate, but he wear his shirt. I'm not telling nobody to revolt and not do things in the house, but it's this balance of I'm not Superwoman, and it's okay if your kids have chores, if your husband have chores, I have chores. Everybody does something. Why? Because we all live in this house. And I think really with the woman, especially if you're working outside of the home, because a lot of women aren't necessarily just at home. They're not. So you've got a job, you've got the kids, and now with all of the things going on with COVID, now many of you have to figure out how to teach your kids. So you got to be the teacher, the mother, the cook, the chef, you got to do all these roles. So my thing is, pick what's going to work or what really is necessary for you to work on. And then don't worry about the noises that people will come and say, oh, your bed not made. They don't know. You might have just got out of the bed. You and your kids had a day in of watching cartoons. It's nobody's business but the people in the house. If the people in the house are satisfied with the way the house is running, everything else is irrelevant.
Yeah. So what are some good ways? Because I talk to a lot of, both young and old mothers who kind of struggle with the balance of even how to evenly delegate responsibilities, right? Because it seems like, especially for women, sometimes we take on more of like, I just got to get it done. I got to do this and all that. And, And I don't know if it's just our inherent nurturing, that we have or what it is, but it seems like a lot of people really struggle with, how do I feel that the load is even?
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? And sometimes it may not even be that the load is even. And I think sometimes in general, what we tend to do, it's actually harder on the front end to teach somebody to do something than to just do it ourselves. So that's why we tend to just say, forget it, I'll do it myself. And so what I had to learn is, you know what? I'm actually doing my family a disservice if I don't teach them how to do what's necessary for them to do. So I realized when my kids were little, I realized my 5-year-old, 6, 8-year-old is not going to clean up the bathroom as clean as I am. But guess what? You responsible if it's only taking out the garbage. You take the garbage out. That's the garbage I don't have to take out.
Yeah.
And what we used to do, we used to take pictures of stuff. We was like, see, here's the picture over the refrigerator or over the, so when you finish, this is what it all looks like.
That's a great idea.
We would take pictures of something. So when your room is clean, it should look like this. So I don't have to just say, Mom, what do you want me to do? See this picture? It needs to look like this. When it looks like this, call me in and I'll come check. Yeah. Now, sometimes they might push the stuff under the bed, but guess what? Some point you have to say, I'm going to give them grace. You're not going to always get it right, but I challenge them. And then some of the things, especially with younger kids, you kind of give them some rewards. So my kids, we had all kind of star systems. We took, what's his name? MC Hammer's Hammer Time song. We changed it. We was called it Star Time. We were like, da, 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 da. Start time. So we did rewards and we just made it fun. So what I had to learn how to do was teach them how to do things so that after a while, guess what? All he had to say is, you want your stars, you want your stickers. They began to do it. So it's just like us. We had to learn how to do some things. So I think it's the same thing, whether it's your husband, you can ask him, hey, honey, I need you to take out the garbage. I need you to load and unload the dishwasher, or could you wash the dishes or let's do it together. I'm cooking, you wash the dishes. So it's just being creative on how to find that help that you need so that everything isn't falling on just you trying to do everything.
Yeah. And I think one thing I had to realize is that it's not a measure of, how much of a mom or a wife you are, because sometimes there's pride in telling people, I did this, I did that, and it's almost like, okay, well, yeah, you feel good about it, but are you running yourself ragged? Are you only getting 4 hours of sleep? Are you only, so then it's like it's that balance of saying like, you can't, I tell everybody, my theme for myself is always like, you can do everything, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you should. And because you'll get burnt out, and it's like, I don't want to be, burnt out before I'm even 40.
Yeah. And this is the other thing too, because I was guilty of this. So if I can help somebody shift this, is don't forget about you. Don't forget about you. This self-care is so vital and important. And as women, we tend to do the self-care not so much for ourselves. I mean, whatever it is, if it's just, you have a time where you get your hair done, you go get your hair done, or for some, your nails done. Give yourself the right to get that something for you kind of pampering thing that makes you, feel like, okay, I'm not just on this wheel and it's always going. Go have a time where you go hang out with your girlfriends. I'm going to so-and-so's house or we're going to get together. I know a couple of friends of ours for years. We used to, at least once a year, we would kind of do a girlfriend weekend where we would just go away, shop, do some things. And then, we'd come back and our husbands would be like, oh my God, how do y'all keep the kid? But one made them appreciate it because like, yeah, you do a lot. And so you just got to be okay with doing some things for yourself, taking care of yourself, making sure you, to the best of your ability, that you are taking care of you. Because guess what? If you're sick, if you're out, who's going to take care? Who's going to run all of the stuff you're running anyway?
Yeah. What are some ways, some creative ways to do that in the time of COVID, right? Because everything looks different right now with not being able to go over your girlfriend's houses readily, or, if you do, it's like, oh, we have to be 6 feet away and in mask and just, all that. And as wintertime is coming, there's not going to be as much opportunity for being outside. And over the summer, we got a little bit of a reprieve because we could do things outside and it was all that. So what are some ways that people can still prioritize themselves and do things as we enter these winter months? Especially, we know that depression usually goes up during the winter time and all of that. So especially now, kind of just being able to be preemptive about this.
And you can still kind of do some of those things, because we had to kind of, to be honest, we've kind of had to figure out some of this stuff. So we couldn't go to the nail place, but we figured out how to pamper ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I would still say the same thing, even if you just say at Thursday, every Thursday between this and this is my time. Mm-hmm. I'm not answering the phone. I used to have what I call No Talk Thursday. And And on No Talk Thursday, not only was I setting time for myself, but people couldn't call me. You couldn't call me on the phone. I wasn't taking any phone calls. And initially, people kind of didn't like that I had No Talk Thursday. Well, I had a need and you weren't there. I'm like, well, Jesus was there for you. But people got used to it. But I like that because sometimes I might not want to do nothing. So I dropped the kids off at school. I didn't have to worry about people calling and doing this and doing that. If I wanted to, watch a movie, read a book, I could do those things. Now, so you find some kind of way of where you don't answer phone calls, because that's the other thing too. We feel like we have to be everything for everybody all the time. Yeah. Give yourself an okay to unplug. Say for a certain amount of times, I'm unplugging, I'm turning off, and even with this time of COVID, with the kids, just because we're all in don't mean that they still stay on a schedule. You have them scheduled. Once they're down, then you've got that free time. You might take some time for you. And some days you might say, hey, like your husband might say, I want to go watch a basketball game. Well, that might not be your thing. So I'm going to go watch, I just watched The Masked Singer. So you go watch what you want to watch. But guess what? Because we are all in understanding, it's not that I'm neglecting you, you're not neglecting me, but this is our alone time. And then when we come together, we've had our own opportunity to kind of de-stress. Take off the pressure of what's going on. And so whatever works for an individual and their family, that's what I think you should put in place. You talk with your spouse, you see what fits your family, and then you do it. We will even do, and sometimes even for me, it's not even getting away from the kids. Sometimes it's even included them. We've done our own version of stuff during this COVID, where we had our own virtual cruise because we couldn't go on a cruise. We for my husband, for Father's Day, I think it was, we bought some old videos of old concerts, and we made tickets like we were going to a concert, and we went to the basement and we just watched some of these things and laughed. So some things you'll do as a family, some things you could do by yourself, but just what do you need? That's what you do.
Yeah, that's good. What are some ways, kind of, you're like a good marriage expert because you've been married how many years now?
38 years. 38
years, my goodness. So, especially for a lot of people whose rhythms have changed, right? Especially because you almost don't realize sometimes how you need that time apart. And so a lot of times now, a lot of people are at home together all the time. So it's not just you and the kids, but even not being used to being around your spouse. And it's not that you don't enjoy being around your spouse, but you're just not used to being around them that much,
Right.
And so what are some good ways to, I guess, not get stuck into the mundane, where it's just like, well, I'm with you all day, every day, so being able to, even find that joy like that you would have if you go out and you out for 8 hours at work and then you come back like, I'm so happy to see you. I haven't seen you all day, so because that's really not people's reality right now.
And the funniest thing about that is, where I am right now, it actually used to be my daughter's bedroom. So it's a small room. So it's like I can reach just like my hand almost touching where my husband sits. So, so that's how close we are. His back is just to me. And so I face this way, his computer faces that way. But what we have both kind of done in our minds is we've gone into our office.
Mm.
So he is over there, he's doing whatever he's doing. I'm over here, I'm doing whatever I do. And actually at like lunchtime, we will leave the room, go downstairs and have lunch together.
Nice.
So we will go and I'll say, are you ready to have lunch together? And so we'll go and we'll have lunch together. And so we switch. So it's really kind of that mental switch, and doing that. And so sometimes, you know, he'll need the office because of what he's doing. So I'll go somewhere else to work, or like when I do my Thursday, he has to leave the office. So we've just had to really talk about it, work it out. And we kind of just learned how to kind of shift, even though we're all still in the same house, but mentally, this is the office. So when we're in here, we're working. When we come out of here, like a lot of times he will go in the family room, in the living room and sit, and that's kind of his time to shift from work. So he'll watch some stuff on TV, and guess what? I leave him alone. I let him sit. I'll go in the bedroom and I will turn on the TV. So we take these separate spots, kind of, you know, shift, and then we'll come back together and say, hey, what's for dinner? What do you want to do for dinner? I don't feel like cooking. We want to order out. We're going to go pick it up. We're good. So we will shift so that even though we're still in the house, we've mentally placed ourselves in different positions. So it's really funny because when you said that, I'm like, yeah, we actually are here like 4/7. We going nowhere, but it doesn't feel that way.
Mm-hmm. And that's good. And like you said, I think having that separate, I think it definitely looks different. You know, I think about for people who are like new parents, it's definitely different because it's like, number one, there is no time alone when you have a new baby, right? It's always somebody's always got the baby, somebody's like, you know, and so it's, or, you know, and then it's like the only time you get maybe might be when they go to sleep. And then you said usually when they go to sleep, you're like, I want to pass out myself because I'm exhausted. So, you know, finding those times where it's like, okay, if you're working at home and you're here and you're doing this, you know, of how to come back together. But I love that idea, like you said, even just having lunch together and being able to say, you know, we're going to set this time apart to say this is where we're coming together and we're doing that. And, you know, so I think that's a really good idea. So
and again, like you said, mine is, I'm coming from the perspective where all of my people are grown and gone. Hallelujah. But I do recall and do remember that it is a little, it's more difficult when you've got a little one. And so even what we used to do then, I mean, it was different because we didn't have COVID, but we still kind of did those role shifts. So I had the kids, when he would come in, he had a moment to regroup, and then it would be like daddy takes on the bedtime. So he would read them their bedtime, you know, stories. We would do like Bible study together, and my girls, I would hear them screaming, mommy, daddy sleep. But I was like, you know what? And that's y'all time. If daddy sleep, I would go peek, he would be knocked out. They would just be riding his back. I was like, whatever, that's y'all time. I'm not getting them all. Y'all, just as long as you get them down. So that gave me a few minutes to be able to kind of regroup. And I just think with any time with parents, you know, whether you're both working out or however that goes on, it can't be this thing of that's the woman's job. And I think sometimes we've given people that message that the children are the woman's job. No, it's the parents' job. And so let's see how as parents we can work this together. What pieces do you take? What pieces do I take? And we had 3 girls, so you can imagine as they get older, everybody was doing different sports, they doing different things. So I managed certain things. My husband went to every sport event. I'm be honest, I don't know how many sport events I went to. They would talk me into a few towards the end, but he went to every one, all 3 girls. But that was his job. That was what he agreed upon doing, and I was fine with that. I agreed on something else, so I would go to the other things that they did at school. But we just, you know, distributed that, and our girls really appreciate. And I think your children will appreciate that both mom and dad showed up for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And taking some of the pressure off, I think, especially like I always tell people who, my friends who are just becoming parents and all that, is just like, don't, and I even my husband and I had a conversation about this, is like daily life shouldn't be so much pressure on us that then we feel like we're just like constantly like crawling trying to get under. Like if we can find a better rhythm that's going to help us to feel like we can enjoy life and actually be present in the moment. And that's a word I was just like the other day I was like, we can go to the laundromat, just get all our, yeah, we have a washer and dryer, but sometimes just getting like the 6 bags of laundry that we need to just get done. And then that way it doesn't feel like we're doing like, oh, we just always got to do this. And it's like, we're making our lives so much more stressful for what? And then we're not enjoying it because in our downtime, we're like, we know we got to do this. We know we got to do that, so not feeling that pressure to be like, I just always have to do all this. It's okay to do that. It's okay to, if you can afford it, you need a cleaning service to come once a month and just help you to, whatever is going to make your lives easier. So again, the focus is, like you said, prioritizing. If I'm not doing this, then now that's extra time I have with my spouse or with my children.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. I just want to add this piece, because at the end of the day, what I think about what's going on in your house is really none of my doggone business, right? And so we allow too many people to voice their opinions about what's going to work well for our family. Yeah. As long the goal is, because we have this thing, we call ourselves Team Williams. So if anybody in the family is going through something, Team Williams comes together and we all rally about that individual in the family. Because why? We want them to understand we're on your side. We don't care what's going on out here. We're Team Williams. So if it's your time, Jackie, we're Team Jackie. If it's my, so we're rallying for you. And so at the end of the day, you want to be able to say, we've got our kids raised, we still intact, and we love each other. You don't want to have spent 20 years, you got the kids grown, and then the both of y'all looking at each other going, this marriage got to go because we've grown apart. So you've got so many things that are necessary, that are really vital. A dirty dish, an unmade bed, 7-8 loads of laundry versus washing them at home, just taking them somewhere else. That's nobody's business. That's what works. And so I just think we need to give ourselves that grace and that freedom to do what works for us as a family.
Yeah. And to stop the spirit of comparison too, because I think that, and it's so hard because we all live on social media basically, right? And then especially, when we're in quarantine, there's nothing else to do but to be on your phone. It's like, this is where we get all our news now. This is where we get all our interaction and everything. So it's like, we're constantly looking, like, I know for me, especially like in my 30s, like everybody's buying houses now. Everybody's doing this, everybody, so it's just like, it's, you have an idea of like where you're trying to get. So it's being able to say, how can I be inspired but not feel pressured by what you're doing, and like knowing like Comparison Kills is one of my favorite songs by Jonathan McReynolds, but it's like really being able to look and say, okay, I can't just be so focused on what they're doing. Like I said, that then, now that's affecting my household, because that's not healthy. And that puts unnecessary pressure on me too, because now I'm living to your standard and not necessarily where I'm supposed to be.
Right. And then we also have to realize when we're looking on social media, we're looking at the, what's the word I want to look for? The word. We're looking for the touched up version of somebody's life. So, they might be standing and posing, in front of their car, but do you know if they're struggling with the car note? So, sometimes we get these uncut, these cut versions, and it looks beautiful and it looks perfect. But I'm like, okay, that's pretty, but let me realize I don't see the underside. I don't see the backside. And that's really what you're saying about why it's so dangerous to compare. I can look at that and say, okay, that's something I want to go for, but what's going to work for my family?
Yes.
Let me see what's going to work for my family. And I'm in this place in my life that I've done a lot of things, some stuff I didn't do right. And I would try to help anybody. Don't get yourself in a whole bunch of debt. Try to stay as debt free as possible. And if you're not debt free, try to work at getting debt free, because you a lot of times why we find ourselves in so much debt is because we let this unnecessary stressors make us think we had to be somewhere before we needed to get there. And so instead of saying, you know what? Do I really need this? Is this necessary? Because if it's not necessary, I'm getting ready to put myself under a stress that because of something I wanted, and now it's going to, have an effect on my family and on my health, on my marriage, on my kids. So I'd rather wait. I just actually told my husband, because I've been without a car for 2 years, and And so, we was grateful because he, just got a bonus. And I was like, okay, my old Jewel would have said, okay, cool. We got this bonus. Go buy me a car. I was like, I done went 2 years without a car. I said, all that money, we need an emergency fund. Put it in our emergency fund because we're getting ready. We're living off of no credit. So we need to have as much money saved as possible. So guess what? You learn how to be content where you are and you just work with it. Yeah. And then at the end of the day, guess what? That's the stress. You don't have, that's the unnecessary stress. I don't have to be like, hey, I don't want no car note. I had some of them. I don't want no more. Never. I will wait.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But that's it, but at the end of the day, what is going to be the best thing for you and your family?
Absolutely. Well, we talked a little bit about, from the woman's point of view, so I don't want the men to feel like we're ignoring them. So, I know for men, sometimes there's a different level of pressure that comes that is, from leading the family and kind of being that, that strength and all that. So how would you suggest that, men deal with what that looks like in leading and kind of, again, even just holding the vision for the family?
Yeah, and I think sometimes I think sometimes in general we get, especially for for the Black man, I'm going to talk specifically in that area. Sometimes you're already dealing with some unnecessary stressors because people have made these determinations about you as a man that you don't, you're slothful, you're this, you're that. So you've got some of these unnecessary pressures that are on, our men. And so you almost kind of have to work double time to try to come from under that. And I think this is where, when you talk about a helpmate, I think as a wife, your encouragement of what your husband does right is so important. Yeah. He could be doing a lot wrong, but we don't always get it right either. And so instead of coming for the juggler, well, you didn't do da. How about, just like I said, we don't want the friends that can, we don't want everybody to tell us all of the 900 things we do wrong. How about say, what did he do right? Honey, thank you. Today you took the garbage out. I so appreciate that. I used to just tell my husband, you know what? I appreciate the fact that you bring your money home and you don't take nothing for yourself off the top. You make sure that everybody in here gets something, that you want what you're providing for your family. And so it's just this encouragement that, and I've watched that over the years as he has tried to make sure that he can provide for us. And I've just really tried to make sure that I was an encouragement. As a wife, you just really don't know how much that really is that fuel for your husband. Yeah. You come and say, honey, I appreciate, the groceries. I appreciate you paid the bills, or whatever it is that your husband is doing, that you are supporting him. Just like it feels good when he come and tell you that he appreciates what you've done. I think that it is this thing where we becomes each other's biggest cheerleader. Yeah. I believe I've got to be my husband's biggest cheerleader. I will cheer him on. I pray for him. And then it's this place of, we have to learn how to be their safe place, even to be able to share vulnerability. It's not so easy, because a female girl will tell you in a minute what's bothering me. Men, think about it. They've been taught you don't share those kind of things. Just toughen up, be a strong man. And so sometimes sharing those vulnerabilities can be difficult. So we have to be this safe place to help them learn how to begin to share those vulnerabilities and those things. And so I've just watched over the years how that has been something that has been really beneficial for my husband, that he knows I got his back. Yeah. He knows I'm his biggest cheerleader, and whatever he's bringing to the table, he don't have to worry about, he ain't got to fight me on coming into agreement. We're going to talk about it. Even if I don't see the vision, I'm like, explain it to me. As I was just talking, about the example I just said, I was like, you know what? No, my husband been trying to get us an emergency fund all our marriage. I said, I don't want none of the money. Every part of the bonus, you put it in this emergency fund. And I actually just began to weep because I was like, Lord, I know why he want to do that. He wants to do it because he wants us to be safe. He wants us to be secure. And if that's going to make him feel secure, I don't need no extra money. I can wait on a car.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we just got to be willing to say, honey, I'm going to invest in your vision,
Yeah.
even if it means I'm going to sacrifice, because I
Yeah.
know your vision is for us.
Yeah, that's good. So, 38 years. So you guys started off pretty young.
Yeah.
So what did that look like? Because I mean, I'm sure, I'm sure he was great, but maybe not even having some of the vision that he has now back then. So how do you encourage, a spouse, especially if you guys are kind of both starting out? So, if this is their first time being married, first time, having a child and, all of that, what does that look like to almost help to I guess, for lack of a better word, even cultivate that vision in your spouse and all that, especially for, like I said, this generation of woman seems very strong, and independent and all that, so how do you partner with him in that without, being domineering?
Yeah, yeah. And look, and that's the thing that I think is really important. Um, we talked about just earlier, like when we talked about friendships, for the woman that's not married yet, I really would say you really need to stop and pause. It's not even about, do he make more money than you? It's none of those things. You need a man that's secure in himself.
Mm-hmm.
He don't have to have a lot, but if you can find a man that's even secure, he's still growing just like you're still growing, but is he secure enough in himself so that it's not going to be this comparison or battle as you move forward. And so even my husband and I, one thing about him that I've appreciated, we've made our steps and our missteps and all of that, but one thing he has never done, he's never been one to stop me from whatever my vision has been. Whatever I felt the Lord wanted me to do, he's been my biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
And so therefore I'm his biggest cheerleader. And so I would have to say, you really need to sit down with your spouse and make sure they understand what your vision is. Yeah. Not only do you understand the vision that he has for you as a family, but everybody has their own personal vision. You have your own personal calling that God wants you to do, and they have to be okay with it. Are you okay? And some stuff they may not be okay with, but this is where you learn how to become okay with it. Because, to be honest, he probably was like, I wasn't trying to marry this woman that's doing 900 million zillion things. And at some point I had to learn how to also still walk in the vision and the plan, but taper it so that he wasn't getting cut out, because sometimes your vision can be so big and you're so into it. And I had to stop and say, well, wait a minute, my vision still can't be bigger than my marriage.
That's good.
His vision can't be so big that it's bigger than our marriage, because we're first. Even and we don't always do this, but we are foundational. The husband and wife, you're foundation, and then the kids and everything else come. But a lot of times we put the kids foundational and work around them. No, you got to be foundational. So are you two okay? Then everything else would work. And so I think that was key in the growing together. We had to always keep sitting down and sharing. What do you want? What do you see?
Yeah.
What do you want for us? I mean, even some of our ministry things and stuff, we had some of these visions in 1982. And we just kept talking about them and working them out. And we didn't know where they were going. We didn't know what was going to happen. But over time, they get shaped. And I think that you keep the vision alive with conversation and talking and prayer. And I just think that that's what's key, for any marriage.
That's good. The marriage workshop is coming soon, because man, I got about 50 more questions. But I mean, this is the wealth of knowledge, and it's so good. And again, I think, kind of even drawing it back to what we've been talking about, the more solid you are, as a unit, then those pressures are going to look differently, and then you're going to be able to handle them differently. That's going to be the difference between that diamond and that dust, and being able to say, okay, this is how we're handling it. And so we don't feel like we're crumbling under pressure. And that's so important, because, and I tell you all the time, it's like, it's never you against him against her. It's we're against whatever is coming against us. And if you have that, again, you're going to face your challenges a lot differently.
And you do, and you got to look at your house as really like, this is our kingdom, So when we come in the house, all that other stuff stay out the door.
Yeah.
We come in, we center in on us, what's going to be best for us as a family, as a whole, and then we're going to work with that. And you said something early about changes, and it still is talking about pressure. There are some things that you can't prepare for. Medical things may happen, job losses may happen. So you've got things, COVID happened. You've got things that come along that we can't prepare for them, but you just find yourself in the middle of them. And I think if you two are in together, then that helps you to be able to be stabilized, because there are times when I'm an emotional wreck because of something, but I know I can be an emotional wreck, and my husband knows, okay, she needs me to just give her a moment.
Yeah.
And she'll regroup, and then we can come and talk about it, or he might need to sit and so we have to really learn each other. Talk about, the man, scripture talking about men learn how to live with it, but we both need to really learn how to deal with one another. And my biggest thing, I tell people, we got to be each other's best friend.
Yeah.
We have to take that to that level of, I want what's best for you, just like I know you want what's best for me.
Yeah. And you can tell the difference, because if that friendship is solid, then even when you guys are mad at each other, there's still going to be a tenderness that's there. And that's what's so important, because then you recognize, I care about you as a person. Even if I'm not looking at you like you my honey boo boo right now, it's like I care about you as a person. And so that's going to, lead and direct the way that I interact with you. And that makes all the difference in the world, like you said, especially because, and that's something I've learned just as a woman, how impactful our words are and our tone. Like, we can build and tear down at the drop of a hat. And so if we look at that and we look at the influence, because, men are usually in this leader, but I recognize as a woman, like, we really set the temperature for our household a lot. And it's like, when you learn that and you learn the influence that you have, and you can pray and encourage your spouse into who they really are meant to be. Same they can do for you, and so if you realize that, then it's like, okay, I'm going to handle you differently because you're my best friend.
Absolutely. And I love that. I'm going to handle you differently. And so that way we show up in the way that we need to do. So guess what? They don't have a stress. So I don't want to be a stress to my husband.
Yeah.
I know he don't want to be a stress to me. So we dealing with pressures that are necessary, but we don't want to add to that. And now it's getting us in a place where we can't come back from, or was unnecessary. So I'm like, Lord, help me today to get in the right mindset so that, we can work together.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been so good. Do you have anything, just kind of as we wrap up, that you'd like to leave us with?
Well, I would just say, when we're talking about this pressure thing, again, it's okay to ask for help. And look to see who you can find help from. And it's also good to have people that are wise that are around you. Not people, because I said this earlier, you don't just need advice, you need wisdom. Because I can give you advice, I can tell you go over there and rob somebody. That ain't good advice. But wisdom speaks to you differently. Wisdom will base things on proven track records. Wisdom will speak to you on things a little bit differently than just advice. So you want to make sure you're looking for people that are going to give you some godly wisdom that's going to help you make good decisions. And then finally, just make sure that whatever decisions you're making, you're not making them by yourself, but you're making them in the confines, in the context of your family. What are you and your husband, or you and your wife deciding for your family? And then you work at it together, because guess what? You're already not by yourself. Why? Because now you're part of this team. You whatever your family, name is, we're team whatever. And you know that already that's less likely of feeling alone, because you're not having to do all this by yourself.
Absolutely. That's so good. Well, thank you. Definitely, like I said, let us know when the marriage workshop is happening, so then we can, get the people to come and to listen and get this wealth of knowledge. And I'd love to hear, maybe one day we can get you and we can get Pastor James as well to come on and, share some things together, because I think it's so important to hear it from both perspectives. And that would be just a wealth of knowledge as well.
We would absolutely love to do it, You know, he's recouping right now after surgery, but once he's up and better, definitely you just let us know and we'll come we'd love to do that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We hope that this was helpful and insightful, and that you go into the rest of this weekend, and even just as we're wrapping up this year, with more grace for yourself, and just, again, being team whoever your last name is, and going, and then that's going to help you to handle that pressure and making sure that you have a solid circle. So remember those things, and we are praying for you and just hoping that this is, we want you to win.
Right.
Period. We just want you to win. Yeah. So thank you. And thank you, Dr. Jewel, again for coming on. And we look forward to having you again soon.
All right. Thank you so much.
Right.
God bless.
Bye.